Multifamily Mirage. I've heard this across several different people that multifamily coordination is easy. It's stack a floor, copy it up, sync the model, and boom, you're a BIM genius. But you're wrong, man. In reality, the identical floor plans turns into like 50 shades of what the hell just happened here. Today, I brought in a buddy of mine, Jacob from DeAngelis Diamond, and we're going to sit and chat about this today. So let me go ahead and how you doing,
How you
Jacob,
doing,
bud? How are
Jacob
you?
Bud? How are you, man?
Good.
Uh, so this is a we've had a relationship for a while, and this topic that we're talking about today, the multifamily mirage. Why are you so passionate about this, man?
Right now in the construction industry, one of the, if not the largest booming markets is multifamily, right? The average population growth per state is immense, and obviously we can't all have single family homes. So multifamily is going to be a necessary evil for construction for a long time.
You,
So,
you, yeah. Let me actually. I got a little ahead of myself there, buddy. Like, tell everybody, tell the world who you are.
So my name is Jake Market, director of VDC at Future Built, DeAngelis Diamond Company, and I've been doing the VDC world for about 18 years now, 19 years, and down here in the Florida market now for about 12 years.
Okay. Heck yeah, man. So I'm gonna make a statement here, and I just want to see your reaction on camera. All right.
Okay.
All right. You ready for this? All right.
World
So
for
multifamily,
about
why should we
18
even
years
coordinate
now,
that, man?
19
It's just
years,
copy
and
pasting everything up floors.
down here
They're
in the Florida
identical floor
market now
plans. They're
for about
identical
12 years.
uh identical units. It doesn't matter about doing coordination. All we have to do is just copy pasta straight up, and it's just stack success is all it is. What do you have to say about that?
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you? Right now, right now, if you take a look at the historic facts from, there's a couple different agencies that track numbers and facts about multifamily in particular, but all types of construction. If you take a look at some of the facts right now, the numbers are astonishing. In the construction industry right now, for multifamily, $15 billion annually is being spent on rework for whether it's lack of coordination, incomplete drawings. This is rework costs. This is stuff that the GCs and the owner and or the owners are having to pay because the communication between owner to design team to contractor to trade partner is not being fully vetted out. $15 billion. The amount of
Jesus.
that is astonishing. I mean, we could be solving housing crises just on the amount of rework that we're doing.
Where do you think that this disconnect comes from? Do you think it's just that people don't give a damn about it, or like why do you think that multifamily is not ran like a data center or a big industrial building in coordination wise?
I think it comes from the root of how are we doing, how are we contracting, how are we approaching the multifamily. So, from an owner's perspective, they have every right to think that construction costs should be, either flatlined or even reducing with the amount of technology that's going into construction, right? If I'm a developer, I'm thinking that it should be easier to build now than it was 20 years ago. The reality is obviously the material costs and other things, labor costs all offset that. But the reality though to that point is that everyone from a different trades to the GCs to the architects, design partners, everyone's costs are dropping, at least on a percentage basis, to be as tight on that market as possible. So what happens is, you get easier components, right? You get your PEX pipe, you get your CPVC, you get all of these different components, flex duct versus rigid duct. Like, you have all these easier components that cost less per their, we'll call it their standard equivalent. And then that does drive the price down a little bit, and there is natural flexibility in those components. But what happens is you have trade partners that no longer will bid that, right? You may have a blue chip duct guy who will not bid a multifamily because they just won't be able to compete in that market. So you're going to get these other trades that come in and replace we'll call it the blue chip subs. They don't have the sophistication though that the blue chip trade partners that you typically were used to working with. So now your trade partner quality has dropped, because you're not getting those people that you typically would work with on a hospital, a data center, et cetera. On that same mindset, you're going to get that same drop from the design partners, right? You have typically, certain design partners who specialize in multifamily, specialize in healthcare, specialize in industrial, but the ones that are in the multifamily market are making less dollars per project than a hospital job, right? They're spending less time on it. Well, those designers have a mindset that they are going to replicate, copy and paste details. How much can they take from project to project and copy and paste it in, because they are fighting for every dollar that they can, just like everybody else in the industry. Yeah. So you have lower quality trade partners, you have design partners who are trying to do everything they can to maximize their profit on a job. You have a GCs who are being more competitive because everything else around them is falling. You can't go in with hospital quality fee and GCs on a project. So now now they're trying to wring out as much as of cost on that as they can. What happens is you look around as whether it's a developer or anyone on the project, you look around and everyone's purging all of the extra waste that they can on the job, which waste is obviously purging the waste is a great concept, but what is replaced by that is just risk. It's not value.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So do you have a story of a project that may have gone awry in conjunction with the multifamily?
Oh, I think everybody does. Yeah. No, I mean, it could be, yeah. I mean, there's a million stories out there. Just from a construction quality standpoint, we had a project where not my current group, but there was a project that I was a part of that, we had a plumber who, again, you get these piecemeal workers that come in and they're not used to doing high level coordination or construction. The plumber decided to start hacking up a lot of trusses on a job. And, what happened was the trusses lost their integrity and we had to go in and sister a bunch of trusses together. And, that was a huge change order and delay to the project because you basically had to build the structure on that twice. But why was that plumber put in that position to begin with, right? Why was the plumber in a position where a person who's not qualified to be making the decisions sat with a hacksaw and went through trusses? Why wasn't the plan properly established? And we'd like to sit there and blame construction quality as much as we want, but the reality is you can sit and blame them, but it's not going to change anything. What's going to need to happen is you need to put those people, those trade partners, in a better position to be successful. And from a multifamily perspective, looking around and calling a copy and paste does nobody any good.
Yeah. And one thing that I think may get lost sometimes too is it's not just about what we're building right now. As these multifamily units grow, there's typically a remod that happens, or it changes owners, and they try to sell the property, whatever have you. If it's jacked up from the beginning, and not really done correctly, that puts it harder to do a remod later because the way things had to be done quickly on the fly, or makes it to where, hey, when we're going to get appraised, it may drop down in price a little bit. They have more of a negotiating tool because your conduit and duct work all looks like spaghetti, just intertwined throughout the building. What are you doing at DeAngelis or Future Built or DeAngelis Company to mitigate this?
So one of the things we like to do, and I think that has really proven to be very fruitful, is there's a couple aspects, and it's, I always like to use the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance, right? So if we're going to, from a pre coordination or even coordination perspective, we need to start off with doing a constructability review, and every GC, every contractor, every trade partner should do that on a job, right? Before you estimate it, before you do anything, do you understand the intent of what you're building? And we all like to say, oh, bid or estimate the fee, the plans and specs, but the reality is, you need to be competitive, but you also need to be that partner that helps, knows that they're going to be comfortable in the number that they provide. So, what we'll do is we'll do a constructability review, and we'll identify a list of components that say, hey, your pool is right above your pool on your multifamily is right above your parking garage. Just so you know, you have a 84-inch drive lane clearance right below that. You're going to have pool piping, right? Well, pool piping doesn't typically get produced in 3D and doesn't typically get produced in drawing packages to us. That's usually a shop drawing process, right? But somebody needs to be calling that out from the start. Somebody needs to be understanding that, that is going to be a constraint in the future. And if you just bid plans and specs and say, oh, there's a pool there, here's my one-line riser diagram, all of a sudden now you're going to be pouring concrete, looking at that pool coming up and saying, how are we going to get this piping out of here? Boom, stop construction. Now you have to start figuring out what to do with the pool. Where's the pool equipment room? And now all of a sudden you have a lot of very costly people standing and staring, waiting for answers. So the constructability review solves a lot of those components. Then it's about coordination, right? It's great to coordinate a model, but what you really need to do is you need to be able to present a package that can go to the field in a way that they can consume it and understand it. So, one of the things that we like to do on a project is we'll do a package for a unit lift drawings. On those drawings, you don't have to search for 17 different things, because the architect likes to draw things, we'll call it compartmentalized, right? Here's a sheet that shows bathroom type 1, bathroom type 2, bathroom type 3. Here's a sheet that shows this unit type, interior elevations. Here's a sheet that shows this unit's plan view. Here's a sheet that shows it the unit's RCP view. Well, that's all of a sudden like 8 different sheets to, so now you're relying on Mr. Plumber or Mr. Electrician to go through and flip through a bunch of sets of drawings to figure out what they're doing and where. What we'll do is we'll take all of those sheets, put it into one 10 to 12 page 11 by 17 package and say, this is your unit A1 drawing package. And it can be printed, it can be on your Procore, on your ACC, it can be set up into a way that somebody just goes in and says, I'm in unit A1 and I'm looking at all of the different components that I need, and everyone's is in there, including the BIM shop drawings. So now all of a sudden, you're now from the field perspective, you're able to basically give all of the information in a very small amount of time, so that even your trades can reference other people's trades work. Now, lastly, we have to document what you do, right? So now all of a sudden they put work in before you close up walls, before you do, do you guys do 360 photos? Do you do laser scanning? How do you do that? And then you document it, and then you're able to produce it back to the owner and the design team that says, this is what's about to be locked in place. Can you, do you have any questions or concerns? And it gives that collaboration from the design partners and even the ownership perspective, the ability to review and approve kind of what's going to happen before you close up walls.
I hear everything you're saying. So I'm going to play devil's advocate just here for a second. So I'm going to be the owner. And what I'm hearing, Jacob, is dollar signs. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing this is going to cost a hell of a lot more than what I'm used to spending on multifamily. Why? Why would I do this? It's working now. Like, we're able to still get buildings done. Yeah, there may be some RFIs, but we'll handle that when it comes up. What do you have to say to that, bud?
I'd say some people like to gamble, right? And if you're spending $50 million and your goal is a 2026, fall of 2026 students' heads in beds for the semester, for a college semester, and you're building, apartments that are right next to the local university, and you want to gamble on that, by all means. And if you're the GC and you want to gamble on that, by all means. What happens typically on these types of exercises is if you don't do it, right, and the project doesn't proceed at the speed and the pace that you're looking at, you get towards the end and all of a sudden you're throwing every body you can to push, and you're getting, from the GC perspective, you're accruing labor overages, you're getting change orders from trade partners because they're working night and day, weekends, everything, that last month before a soft opening, because students are coming on September, or August, or whatever that local universities are. You get the last 4 to 6 weeks before they arrive, and that's a prime example of, it doesn't matter the extra dollars that you could have spent a year ago. At that point, you're just, the checkbook's open. Like, you have to get it done, or you're facing damages based on your contract.
Yeah, I see. I know for our viewers at home, we do a lot of work together with the coordination efforts and stuff like that. But the cost really is not as bad as what people may think it is. Especially properly. Now, if you get some piss poor coordination team that will not cost you, you have to go back and re-coordinate the coordinated drawings. Yes, it can. But if you find like a really good coordination team that can get it done faster, under budget, that can really cause those owners to be like, oh wait, it's not going to be that much. The got to get past this misnomer, which money's important. We know this. Like, you work, I work for what? Yes, I love what I do, but I also love the money that it gives me, right? Like, I'm not doing this just for fun. And we know our clients and our owners, they are the ones spending the money. So we want to be mindful of that and I think that's where that disconnect comes from, is making sure that we're putting forth the effort to let the owners and everyone who has a money in the game know that, hey, we're not out here trying to screw you over to get more money. We're all in this as one team to try to get this project done.
It's funny. I always make the joke whenever I talk to somebody about this. I've never worked so hard to spread the message that I need to work more. Right.
Yeah.
From the BIM perspective, if we were to just turn up, from all your BIM partners and all your BIM managers in the companies, if all of us just were to turn a blind eye to multifamily, nobody would come knocking, right? Nobody's asking for it in the sense of, hey, we need help on this, like you would a data center or a hospital or something like that. What this message is being said is from the parents of a BIM team who just cares about their company's well-being, right? There's a problem out there and we can solve it. And it's just ironic that we work hard to add more work for ourselves.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's funny that you say that. I've actually, so my coordination team, some of them sit right outside my office window, and like, I know what they're working on. And I have some that are working on like a massive data center, right? And I have some that are working on some of these multifamily. The people, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the people who are on the multifamily seem more stressed and ready to throw their computer monitor out the window than those that are on these massive projects, because it does get super dicey and they're trying to coordinate in a confined space where everybody has their view of where things should go and how it has to go for design intent. Multifamily can be like a booger in itself.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, you think about it, the amount of stuff that goes per square foot in a multifamily, again, some of it's flexible. We get that. We understand. And every once in a while you need to throw a change up. You can't constantly throw fast balls and curve balls. Every once in a while, it might be an easy unit, right? But you still have to throw that pitch, right?
Yep.
And with that, per square foot, there's so much that goes into like a mechanical closet. It might be the most densely populated per square foot item that we coordinate. I mean, minus like a CEP or a utility plant or something like that. But like, you have 7 or 8 people, groups, entities that are working in a 3x3 space. You think they're talking out of a call? No. It's first person in, and then the last person in is going to have to just make do with what's left.
That's 100% correct. It goes back to that. Multifamily seems to not have, I mean, obviously construction is involved, but back in the days of like field coordination, where it was whoever got to the site first and put their shit up, that's who you had to go around. It's like multifamily is not still there, but it's not where everything else is. There's still that level of like in between, like 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot on the banana peel type situation. You're hoping that when you slip and fall, that you fall on the right side of things. So when you're doing these multifamilies, like what are you running it just like any other coordination? Like you're bringing it in your ACC or whatever, project management software you're using, and then you're running it through Navis. What are you doing? Are there anything different you're doing with multifamily, or are you just literally running it the exact same way you would run any other coordination project?
I mean, we're trying to run it as similar to every coordination project as possible, right? And the reason for that is because those are tried and true processes. There is obviously a lot of efficiencies to be gained, right? So for example, let's just pick on a multifamily. You may have 7 unit types. Do you need to go sit and model 7 unit types? And from the detailer and the modeler's perspective, there should be efficiencies, right? You model it one time, group it, copy and paste, place it, that type of thing. So there is efficiencies there, but we're trying to run it as closely to the same process as possible. And the reason for that is because, the architect from the design team side, they're going to be drawing a unit, copying and pasting it, or at least they'll draw 1 unit detailed, and then on an overall plan, they're going to reference, sheet 1 on A401 or something like that. So if they're going to do that and they're going to copy and paste, what happens on the exterior of the building if there's a condition where it's different than the copy and paste allows? If you just do 1 unit and just say, they drew 1 unit, we're going to draw 1 unit, and we're going to coordinate 1 unit, and that's it. Well, then you've just accepted the same amount of risk from the design team perspective.
Yep.
So we'll still draw the unit, we'll still coordinate the unit, and then we will still place it in every single instance. And you're still having the efficiencies that they're all grouped. So if something does get clashed or something like that, you can identify that maybe this type A1 unit on level 3 wing 2 is different than the rest of them, right? Well, now that now your field team knows that, and maybe you make a new unit type for that. But we try to keep the same process as much as possible.
Okay. How are you mitigating like you said, multifamily, nobody's really wanting to do this kind of work, as far as more work with coordination, and some of these subs that we're using may not have the ability to do coordination. Are you getting the design team to hop in and do coordination? How are you doing that aspect with like actually running the coordination if like when your subs don't have the capabilities to model?
One of the things that FutureBuilt does, and I'm very excited about, because I think it's a differentiator for a lot of projects and a lot of project styles, is we'll do the constructability review, and that'll be more times than not using the design models, and that'll be a very good barometer of how good your drawing packages are, right? If you only have a couple issues per floor, you've now called them out already. You could set your construction team and whether it's your project engineers or your APMs or whoever, like you can bird dog them to RFI it and get those answers resolved, and you're good to go. But if your constructability review highlights like a Christmas tree and there's issues popping up all over the place, and it's not something that's going to be an RFIable situation, at that point in time, that justification can transition into why we're going to do BIM on this job. And when we do the BIM on that job, if the trade partners don't have it, because again, we talked about earlier, your normal blue chip, plumber, mechanical, et cetera, aren't going to be able to compete to the piecemeal workers that typically live in the multifamily industry. They're not going to have that typical capability. So with multifamily, we like to do the in-house, Future Built does the in-house internal coordination, where we'll run the coordination from the GC perspective. And then, whether we do the modeling self-perform, or we reach out to, a lot of times we reach out to you guys, ATG team, and we'll bring everybody into one environment and allow and encourage the plumber and the mechanical, electrical, fire to participate in the calls, because they're going to own the product that comes out. Not only does it give them a better product and more comfort in their number moving forward, but it also introduces them to what the industry should be and can be doing. And now they're going to be more comfortable on the next project they go to, and they say, hey, we really should be coordinating this because it worked really well in my last job.
Yeah, it's like when you give. I remember the first time my son, I ever gave him like a true candy bar. He never really had like a true candy bar before. And I remember the first time it was like his eyes light up, and now every night, without fail, it's like, hey, can I have dessert after dinner? Can I have dessert after dinner? It's like once you try it and you're able to like taste that greatness of, oh my God, this is so great. This is so much easier. You don't want to give up it, and you want to like repeat it. So I think what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense, is not only are we helping this project out, we're helping the industry out. But we're setting the tone of, hey, this is the standard that we need to sit by. This is what we need to be doing. And then in turn, if we can get everybody doing this, are there going to be naysayers? Are there going to be people who listen to this pod and they're like, this is a bunch of BS? We're going to keep doing? Absolutely. But it's like I said in the first little mini intro episode last month, was that comfort is the enemy of progress. Like if you're going to stay right where you are, you're not going to be moving forward. And eventually, all these people who are, and then able to compete with those individuals who aren't at that same kind of monetary value, maybe elevated just a slight, they're going to take over the market, man.
100%. I mean, just think about it this way, and I think this is a great analogy of how to place it. There's professional gamblers out there, right? Whether they do sports or cards or tables, and there's a few out there that are, very profitable and they make it. But for every one that's in that market, those professional gamblers, there's 5 people like you and me who sports bet on the app or something and lose our butts on it, right?
I'm more used to losing my butt at blackjack, but
there you go. Yeah. So for every one that does really well, there's 4 or 5 that don't, right? And the question that every single one of these listeners should be asking themselves is, do you want to spend an extra, 50 grand on a, the 25 to $50 million job, or do you want to gamble and potentially have 100 to 200 grand, easily on change orders, RFIs, confusion, inefficiencies, etc. I have to believe that on every single project, everyone who's been on multifamily, when you're getting down to that last month or two, any PM from that perspective is going to remember a time where on a project they had 5 to 10 extra people on their staff because they were doing night shift, they were doing weekends, they were going round the clock to meet those heads in beds date. And I can guarantee you now that hearing another option, they would have much rather spent the 50 grand up front and just cruised through and gave everyone peace of life for the duration of that project.
Oh, no doubt about it, man. Like I know it is a chunk of money. Like 50 grand is a chunk of money. But when you think about it in terms of what you're saying of like the 1.5, 2.5 mil jobs, that is not a big investment to go ahead and just do. And it doesn't just give you the coordination. It opens up, are you wanting to take that model and then as built it out? So that way you can have like an FM model, or when you're going back 10 years down the line from now, when somebody's trying to remod that, it's all going to be like on the cloud, ready to rock and roll. You're never going to lose your prints. And one of my favorite things is everybody who I've talked to who's been in the industry for a minute has lost something or worked on a job that the prints were lost in a flood or a fire. There's always been that story of, hey, flood or fire, we don't have anything. And then we're going to have to do like a remod on the job. And it's, hey, guess where the pipes are? We're not busting them the sheetrock, just guess. So you're trying to, use your wizard powers of, okay, how does this route? But we can take this model and not just have a fully coordinated model. Efficiency on construction, that model can be live throughout the history of the project and thereafter.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, and you brought up a great point, I'm surprised that the multifamily industry isn't leading the way on, FM, facility management models.
I don't understand it either, man. Like you see these big, college campuses or hospitals kind of, certain ones doing that, but taking that FM approach to that, I think it makes sense, but it's just not there. Is it costly? Sure. Getting everything set up. Can it be costly? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree. I don't know why multifamily is not.
I mean, to be able to, you're about to run this building for, minimum 5 years, maximum 30 to 40, that type of window. You're about to run this. You're about to have a maintenance department that's going to have to service these units. The specifically like on apartments, your tenants aren't going to be doing it. So what happens when there's a leaking pipe? Do you want your maintenance team to tear down the entire wall of drywall, or be able to know that from this, edge of wall to this point, there's a pipe at, 7 foot 6 inches in,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to do a 6-inch sliver of drywall, repair.
Yeah. And that, but also being able to know, okay, this is kind of reconnaissance before you go out for maintenance. Like, what you're saying. But also instead of the fix, but having to get up there and crawl through the, crawl space or try to locate the leak. You can, if it's leaking here and I look in the model and there's no pipes over here, but a pipe like right, you can get in there and see where it is without having to do all your, sleuth work of where the problem's at before, and get in and know what material it's made out of, know how the fix is going to, what the cost of the fix is going to be. Do we need to shut down the whole, if it's a hospital or a multifamily high rise, is the leak bad enough that we need to vacate? So many options.
Yeah. You brought up that good point earlier, and it made my mind start thinking like, not only should they be doing the BIM, but I'm just surprised that this isn't the path, especially your bigger builders, right? Everyone likes to turn to your main, single family home builders, your Lennars, your DR Hortons, your KB Homes, those types of groups. And, everyone likes to talk to them about, oh, well, they're building all of these without, BIM and coordination. Well, it's not actually true. They've coordinated those buildings and those footprints and those models, and they've done the job once. And yes, now they're basically, they know on those different components, the exact bill of materials, like how many studs do we need? Here's the exact plans and the exact placements of things. Like they've gone through the great detail of one element of it, and then they've extracted it out over multiple communities, multiple areas. Why isn't our multifamily homes team, developers doing the same thing, right? Just figure out the building, and obviously certain ones have different aesthetics and things, but you can always change those pretty easily. but you should have a program built as a developer that says this unit can be here, which means like mech closets here, which means, and then start building those components out. And then at the end of that process, have that FM model to where you're, because you're running the maintenance on it. So why wouldn't you give that, that model and that program to your maintenance team and say, here you go, right? Next 5 years or minimum, right? That's turnaround time, the minimum turnaround time, the next 5 years, this is what you need to be servicing on this platform that we've developed. And at that point in time, we'll sell it or we continue to operate.
Yep. No, and it's been yes, it makes sense, right? But on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely do you think that this is going to change in the industry? And what can we do as coordinators, as the ones, GCs, subcontractors, and the early adopting owners? What can we do as a community to push this process along, in your opinion?
I definitely see it likely changing, honestly. I think we're on the greater than 5, less than 8, 9, scale. So I think we're probably in like the 7, 8 likelihood of change. And the reason why is because I mentioned at the beginning of the call, like 15 billion in multifamily rework. It's going to get to the point where, as we continue to wrangle costs out and try to drop this thing and just, build it better, quicker, faster, and for cheaper, they're going to get to the point where they're going to start seeing that the best way to do that is by mitigating risk and reducing cost. So one of the ways to do that would be to implement the BIM, which, yes, that's a cost add, but you are also reducing, you're offsetting that by the reduction in the rework and the change orders and the RFIs. So I do see a likely change in that industry. We're not stopping building multifamily. So, people are going to grow tired of losing money on it or barely making money or scraping money together to meet your fee on that. So I do see it likely. What can we do to help it? I think we can continue to voice the concerns, right? From the BIM and VDC side, I think ultimately all you can do is offer a solution. You can't force the horse to the water. I think from a GC, operations leadership type of perspective, I think you guys, a high level of recommendation is going to be to go in and review your financials on those multifamilies. Go check yourself if it actually would not have benefited from BIM. If you can go look at a couple projects and say, we had no issues at all, we had no change orders, within reason, no change orders, no RFIs. It was very clear cut. We met schedule. We were on budget, and that's your norm in your company. Then you're probably the unicorns. But for most folks, you're going to look at some gnarly projects that have some P&L reports that are not necessarily ideal on projects, and you may have made money, but you may have had fee erosion, and the fee erosion of 1% to 2%, was that the offset of what it could have saved, and then you could have done it faster? Did you have to throw a lot of extra bodies at the job to finish it on time? There's a lot of things that you'll look at from or the cost report after the fact, kind of post-mortem report of that job. And you might see that would have really benefited from a better pre-plan than what we guys executed.
I absolutely agree. Jacob, it's been a pleasure talking with you on the ugly truth about construction. Before we go, anything you else you want to say? Any thoughts, concerns, haikus, funny stories? We'll sit here all day, buddy, and talk.
Oh man, I could go all day. I'll just say that one of the things that from this podcast in particular, it's great, is companies love to think that what they're doing is unique to themselves and proprietary and stuff like that. But that is what's largely restricting the construction industry from growth. I think stuff, podcasts like this, groups like yourself that are bridging companies together, it gets people to start talking, and really the sharing of the information that we're doing is really what's going to be able to change the industry. We can't keep the old guard that the motto that we've always done it this way. And, you know, the folks that have done it for a generation where they don't want to change. And when we remove those folks and the blocks as a construction industry, we have a lot of catching up to do. And I think podcasts like this and conversations like this are immensely helpful. And you know, as we continue to grow, both the voice, the podcasts, et cetera, getting folks from like an architectural design perspective and trade perspectives and owner perspectives, and like really starting that cross, we'll call it cross sector of construction, you know, conversation is going to really allow people, because when you're on a project and you're having these conversations, everyone's guarded, right? Because you have stake in the game and your fee is your fee, or, you know, the groups, you know, everyone's kind of defending themselves. But on a conversation like this, if there was an architect sitting on this call, they'd be able to weigh in and provide insight, because they don't have stake in the game. It's not about a project. It's just about process and flows as a general whole. These conversations need to happen, and we need to all get better.
I could not agree with you more, man. That's why the crux of this is literally, I talked to hundreds and hundreds of people on what's going wrong, how can they help, how can we help them, what's their process. And dude, 5 other people just said this exact same shit this week. You know, like, why are we not communicating as an industry? So that's what this is for. And you just helped me up by setting me up with that, bud. So send your questions to the Ugly Truth at ATG USA. Let's talk. Let's get in. Let's get a group together. And then, like, my goal is to have, you know, guests on every month. And then, you know, maybe after we get a couple of differing opinions, bring everybody in and let's have like a celebrity death match of construction where we're all just like, we're passionate people. You know, we're being guarded. You know, we both did very well about some of the words that we've been using on a live podcast. So kudos to you, Jacob. I appreciate that. Pat on my back. So we're very colorful people. We're very passionate about what we do. So why not bring that passion into an environment where we can actually make some damn change instead of just one person changing? I know that we're all in business. We all want to be the best. That's great, grand, wonderful. But the big thing is making construction better, making it to where we're not walking through the desert thinking that multifamily is this big, beautiful thing. And turns out it's a mirage. So Jacob, thank you so much for being here, my friend. I look forward to our future conversations. Again, my friends watching, listening, wherever you are, email your questions to theuglytruth at atgusa.com. Let's have a conversation. Let's bridge the gap between the architects, the field, the office. Let's get real. Let's get raw. Let's have a great rest of our day. Thank you, guys. Like, subscribe, reach out if you have any questions, stories, and I'll see you the next time on The Ugly Truth About Construction.